Hey guys, so excited to have a friend with me in the studio today. I'm Trey Bolin and I'm the host of Origin Stories. And I'm a storyteller, a creator, a photographer. What I really love to do is to dive in deep and listen to other people's origins, how things started. I love new beginnings, fresh starts, pivots, resurrections, redirections, sometimes revolution. But I can't wait to have my friend Johnny share with us because everyone has an origin story. So I can't wait to hear yours, Johnny.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yay. Okay. So my first question is an easy one. I'm going to soft throw the ball to you. What do you do?
I am a relationship and communication coach. And what that means is I believe in healthy relationships, but to do that, you have to be talking to one another. And I love communication in that it brings a whole self awareness for people
Mm.
once you really understand who you are, why you process the information you process it, and
Mm.
everything, and then be able to share it. You will make so many more connections and have authentic
Mm.
relationships. So that's what
Okay.
I
So when you say relationship coach, we're talking dating, we're talking husband, wives. What are we talking about here? I saw
do.
you make a face. So,
There's relationships everywhere. It's funny because people, they do assume that, or they would hope that I would be like Hitch, help
yes.
hook.
Yes.
And
Teach me the secret moves.
right, I would love to be able to do that. I think some of that again would come down to communication, and
Mm.
you can't really communicate what you need in a relationship until you know and understand who you are and what life has done to shape you.
Mm.
And I think you find relationships everywhere. I want to work specifically with co-parenting relationships. I think
Mm.
that's really important. We're just not teaching our kids how to communicate, how to work through conflict, how to work through issues that help other people grow and be better, as opposed to just breaking. The whole trend is, well, I'm going to cut people out of my life. Well, why? We need people.
Yes, yes. And when you start cutting, like who's going to be left after all of the cutting?
Exactly. So I'm pro relationship everywhere. Employees, bosses, managers, coworkers, brothers, sisters. Like I want to see healthy relationships everywhere. Everywhere I look.
I think that's beautiful. And wouldn't the world be a better place if all these relationships were just beautiful and healthy? So, do you have a beautiful, healthy relationship? How did this all get started? Because sometimes the things that break us grow us.
Yes, all of it started after my divorce. Um, I was married for 15 years, and in that time, we were youth and young adult pastors, my ex-husband and I, and I just knew that we were done, and
Mm.
it was really hard because you're not really supposed to get divorced if you're in the church, and to make that big leap, I had to do
Mm.
it because I knew what I needed. I knew what I needed for myself, and that our paths were so different now that it was time to let it go. And unfortunately, I shouldn't have married him to begin with. That was my
Mm.
first step. So then I had to readjust, and I was seeing that my kids were suffering um,
Mm.
because they were watching such a poor example, a poor
Mm.
example of a marriage, and I didn't want that for them, and I wanted better for me.
Mm.
And I told them in the divorce, the kids, my son specifically, because my daughter was still kind of young, but I said, I want you to see two happy homes. That's what I
Mm.
want. If I'm going to make this big step, know that my goal will always be for two happy homes, and then you'll be so much more loved. You're not going to be in this midst of conflict.
Mm.
So yeah, that was the first big step and big pivot, and learning how to communicate what it was that I needed and take my
Mm.
needs into consideration.
Mm. Sometimes from heartache grows beautiful things.
Hmm.
I think we can experience loss or hardship and then grow from that.
Yes.
And it sounds like that's exactly what happened to you. So, how did you then navigate after that? So, we were like, okay, now this split happened, and then boom, you decided to be a relationship coach. Or where was the progression? I want to hear more about that
The whole
tangling.
Well, obviously, when the church found out that we were getting a divorce, they don't want you to be a pastor anymore. And so I was like, well, I need to start like working because I'd just been a pastor's wife for a really long time, stay-at-home
Mhm,
mom,
mhm.
but I still wanted to help people. So
Yeah.
I started working at a hospital. I was a unit clerk on their intermediate care floor, but I would do the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift, and
Mhm.
not a lot happening there.
No,
So
no, I actually worked that shift myself.
Oh, yeah. So, there's not a
I
lot.
do know.
In the 4 years that I was there, I wrote a book. I haven't done anything with it. It's just sitting in my computer. But, and then I made a lot of friendships, a lot of relationships. I was kind of known as the counselor. Um,
Mm,
they would come talk to me about their relationships and what's going on, their
mhm.
wives, their crazy husbands, their exes. Yeah, and I just continued to help people in that area. And after I left that, I went into the service industry, become a server, and same thing. Like I'm constantly having deep conversations with people
Yeah.
about relationships because I love relationships. I just
Mm.
love and so that all happened and then COVID happened and everything shut down.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
I was still in Springfield, Illinois. And during COVID, my ex-husband passed away August of 2020.
Wow.
And that was the point where I realized I had really fucked up all the co-parenting stuff. Um,
Wow.
it was
Wow.
terrible. Not only, he went quickly.
Mm,
He called me Saturday morning, asked me to come get the kids, and you could just tell already there was something not right. There was something going
mm.
on. So I go pick up the kids, and he was gone by Monday morning. The kids, that
Wow.
was the last time they saw their father.
Oh my goodness.
And keeping the updates, calling his family, trying to get information. But
Yeah.
the problem was, because our co-parenting was non-existent. There, we
Mm,
didn't talk. There was very little healthy communication. It was all very violent, so much
mm,
gaslighting,
mm.
passive aggressiveness, just all kinds of terrible things. Um, he he had an idea of who I was as this horrible person and fed that information to his family where the 15 years where I had known and had a
Yeah.
brother-in-law and a sister-in-law and mother-in-law, that was completely broken down. It was gone. There
Mm,
was nothing left of it. And when my ex passed, I texted his mom and I said, "I'm so sorry for your loss. You are more than welcome to come see the kids."
mm.
I'm picturing a Steel Magnolias moment
Yeah.
where,
Yeah.
she's running up to the door. She's got to wrap her arms around this kids
Yeah.
because they're the extension of her son.
Yeah.
Well, she never responded. She
Mm.
never came. They didn't, for 2 weeks, didn't even talk to my kids. My kids had just lost their father,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
were, it's a horrific moment. And because our co-parenting was so bad, um, the kids were starting to ask themselves, well, did we do something wrong? And I'm like,
Mm.
oh my God, no,
Yeah.
no, you
Yeah.
didn't do wrong. And I am so sorry that because we didn't figure our shit out, you're paying the price for it.
Ugh.
And it was that's when I knew I had done it wrong. I had done it
Mm.
wrong. I didn't know what I was doing. Nobody told me. When I got a
Yeah.
divorce, the church was like, "Bye-bye,"
Yeah.
and then
Mm.
talking to other people. And there's this thing that I talk about with triangulation where you bring people in because they're going to support you and,
Yeah.
cutting off the ties. I needed someone to look at me and be like, "Do you want to maybe do it differently?"
Mhm.
Like, "Do
Mhm.
you think that this is the best option?" I didn't have that. And because of that, my kids suffered.
Mm.
And the relationship was so bad. I couldn't go to the funeral with my kids. That
Mm.
was horrific because they're going through the
Mm.
worst day of their life and I
Yeah.
can't be there to support them and hug them and love on them and just, hold their hand.
Yeah.
Um, his mother, their grandmother, got a court order against me, so I couldn't even go. I couldn't even sit in the parking lot. It was terrible. And then my daughter obviously didn't want to go to the funeral without me. So then
Yeah.
we had to bring in my sister-in-law and
Mhm.
drag my daughter out.
Yeah.
Morning of the
Mhm.
funeral, this is what's happening. So all of those things are so vivid in my mind that I go, we need to do better. We need to do
Mhm.
better. I need to do better. Our world needs to do better. We need to
Yeah.
understand that relationships, marriages, husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, partners, whatever, those can break down. But what we should be doing is teaching them how to continue in a healthy way that's raising healthy adults.
Mhm.
And so that's why I'm passionate about it.
Yeah. I think when we go through these hard things,
Mhm.
we can come out on the other side better
I
and
hope so.
having learned something,
Mhm.
and that's a horrible story, but you are trying to pivot and use it to fuel for the good. I think that's really incredible. Now, I know this is actually not where the tragedy stops, and I'd love if you're willing to share, like, what happened next. Because sometimes we see, oh, okay, there's something hard, and now it gets good and it's sunshiny and bright. But you had a hard, and then you had another hard,
Oh, I had so many hards
right?
that year.
Yes.
2020 was a rough one. It was a rough one for everyone, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, w- uh, Once my ex passed, then I knew, well, I wasn't going to stay there anymore. I wanted to come back to the Michigan area, Ann
Mm.
Arbor, and stay there and be close to my family. And I had a boyfriend that was living with me at the time, and about a month later he left. And then I suffered my second miscarriage of the year. And so I
Oh,
was just a walking, I blogged for a long time, for
mm.
almost 3 years. And those are some of the darkest blogs that you'll ever read. But I connected with my audience because they were like, wow, she's in a lot of pain. And I was like, I am. Like, there are days that I don't remember even like what I did because I was just in such a deep depression. But I had to keep going. Like, I had to keep going. I had to keep moving. And I had a goal because that year was my son's 8th grade year. And I wanted us to be moved and settled so he could start his high school wherever he needed to go, wherever we decided.
Yeah.
So I gave him the laptop and I said, Michigan is where we're going. Ann Arbor is where we're going. Here are the list of schools. Pick one and I'll make sure we get there. Like, I'll make sure I find a
Yeah.
job in the right area. I'll find a house in the right area. We'll make this happen. I have a lot of like big aspirations or expectations of myself.
Hey.
And so he picked the school, and I was like, "All right, we're doing it." And I had to finish remodeling my house. I had to sell my house, and I came up to do an interview here with with the restaurant that I'm at. And that weekend, I was driving back home, and my mom died. It was 2 weeks before we were getting ready to move. And
Mhm.
I was getting ready to move to be here to be closer to her because
Yeah.
I had spent, oh, 24, 23 years living away from her. And this would have been
Yeah.
the first time in 24 years that I would be able to be back, make her dinners,
Yeah.
like take care
Yeah.
of my mom because she wasn't doing well. Um, and she died 2 weeks before I was supposed to be there. So it was, they moved up my move date so that I could get up here and try to be
Mm.
here for the funeral because I couldn't cross the border. COVID was still, the borders were still locked down. You had
Oh,
to have all
goodness.
this paperwork, you had to have all your shots. And so I just did it. I packed up a huge, like 25-foot truck, put my car on the back of it. The three of us loaded in. My son was in the middle. My daughter was on the side. He had the cat on his lap. She had the dog at her feet. And we just came. And we got here in enough time to drop off all of our stuff and then get across the border to attend my mom's funeral and then figure out life after that.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like she was in Canada.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to make the connection. That was a really rough time, where not being able to cross the border, not being able to see family, friends. I know I didn't see some friends that I have there. I think she was pregnant and then had her baby. I still haven't seen her, because of all these different things that have happened and transpired and limitations on things. And Yeah, to be in the lockdown time during that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And so overcoming that. So now in your story, you've sold your house, you've moved to Ann Arbor.
Mhm.
Let's have a fresh start. What happens next?
We did good for the first year. The first year I worked probably almost 7 days a week for almost the
Yeah.
full year because you just don't know what the prices are like. It's obviously much more expensive up here.
Yeah.
And I needed to make sure the bills were getting paid, got the kids acclimated into everything. And so then once we spent a whole year doing that, I was like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Like, I'm
Right.
ready for me. Like,
Yes.
I've got the kids situated. They're happy. They're thriving. They're doing great things. I'm sold. Wonderful.
Yes.
Time for me. Because one of the things that I strongly believe in is we have to teach our kids to become adults. Like, but I
Yeah.
do it in a way where I'm like, I'm going to show you. Like they are actively, they're well aware of all my boyfriends that I've ever met. Like I'm not one of those people that, date and be like, oh, this is the guy I'm going to marry. No, you're going to see all the nitty gritty. You're going to see me when I'm crying because he dumped me or,
Yeah.
missed a date, whatever, like I like to show by example.
Yeah.
And so I told the kids, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to become a life coach. So they watched me. They were, I had my classes. They had to do their own thing. I did classes for 6 months. And then once I graduated, then it was time to start like, okay, let's do a design. What do you guys think of this name? Like they've
Yeah.
been with me
Yeah.
every step of the way. And so that was really great. They're watching me work really hard at everything. They watch
Mm.
me go out and network. They watch me on phone calls, podcasts, all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
so I've been like, just trying to live by example. And then we were doing really well. And then Memorial Day hit. And that was just another shit show. We were trying to clean up our garage, and we were getting ready to burn some cardboard at our condo. So it was like this fourplex, a duplex here, and then a duplex on the other side. And we had been using this fire pit for 2 years since we lived
Yeah.
there. And just happened, and it wasn't windy. I double checked everything, but one little ember jumped out and hit some old brush and just went up. The whole thing went up. And it's not like I spent a lot of time in front of a fire. I don't know how quickly it
Yeah.
goes, but
Yeah.
it was seconds, literally seconds. And I'm just watching the siding melt. And my son, he didn't know what to do. So he's like trying to grab a bucket of water. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, we need to call 911. And we like start running and banging on all the doors, like, everyone get out, call 911.
Yeah. Yeah.
The place didn't have fire extinguishers. So that was an issue.
Oh,
As a rental, you really
yeah.
want to make sure your place has fire extinguishers.
Hmm.
But then, so we got 911 on and called, and essentially the house burned down. I mean, they were able to get the fire out. Well, the garage, we lost both cars.
Oh,
We lost both of our cars. Our neighbor lost 3 cars. And then the fire, like, when they say it jumps. Like, it's
yeah.
crazy to watch. And they wanted us to so my daughter was originally still in there, and they're like, get everyone out of the house. So we run to the back and get Scarlett out. We try to get the
Mm.
dog, but Scarlett's standing on the porch just screaming because her cat's still inside. And I was like,
Oh,
so there I go back in,
oh
and
my goodness.
I go upstairs, and just it still haunts me, obviously. Just seeing like the fire and watching it break through, and there's a
Mm.
lot of popping, like just pop, pop, glass popping, everything's
Oh my
popping.
goodness.
Tires are popping, the engines that when the car completely
Yeah.
just pops, everything just pops. And so I'm upstairs trying to get the cat. Had gone underneath my bed, and the upper floor was clear when I got there, and we're talking maybe 90 seconds while I'm trying to get this
Yeah.
cat.
Yeah.
And it had completely filled within 90 seconds. The entire
Oh
second
my
floor
God.
was completely filled. And I'm doing the army crawl because I know,
Right.
get down.
Right.
There's no point. I mean, yes, there's a point, I'm sure, but it was so filled. I couldn't see anything. I'm just going off of memory, go down the hall, and then I hit the stairs and I start falling down the stairs too. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Like I'm just gonna die. And so I finally get out of the house. We can't find the cat. The cat, thankfully, he had run out, of course,
Oh,
but the fire department ended up finding him, trying to run back in. They were like, "No, don't go
we're not
home."
running into a fire cat.
So they ended up finding him, but by that point, they had to take me to the hospital because I had first-degree burns,
Oh my
which
goodness.
is essentially,
Yeah.
a sunburn, but it was from ash. It was from all the ash and
Oh
this.
gosh.
And then I had a partially collapsed lung, and
Mm,
there was soot in my airway. So they kept me overnight just to make sure everything was fine. And that started a long 16 weeks of rebuilding. The only
yeah.
thing I walked out with was my phone. My
Mm,
daughter didn't have a chance to get her shoes on, and so she was barefoot, and she was able to grab one stuffed animal. The
wow.
second floor, we lost basically everything on the second floor. We weren't able to save much from there. And then what the fire doesn't get, water does. The
Right.
water for
That's what
sure.
I've heard.
Yeah, there you couldn't save anything, and even the stuff that we saved is still sitting in my new garage, just full of mold. And
Right.
it's
Because what are you gonna do with it?
throw it away when I'm emotionally able to.
Right. Right.
There's one thing that when it's like, okay, I was able to salvage some stuff, but I kind of wish I hadn't,
Mm,
like because
yeah.
it's a secondary trauma of throwing this stuff away that I thought, oh my God, I got it, and then like
Mhm.
I didn't. I
Yeah.
can't.
Not really truly savable.
No.
There's so much hard in your story. Where do you draw strength from?
Um, I draw strength from. I mean, I have a faith, obviously, as a pastor, faith, but I also I think I draw faith or strength from the fact that I know I can do it.
Mhm,
Like I one of the big things, the big crossroads I had to come to when I was getting ready to be divorced was people would look at me and say, well, God doesn't approve of that. Or God, oh, what was it? Someone literally said this. Oh, God hates people who get divorced. And I said,
mm,
well, thank you, but God still loves me.
mm,
And I couldn't. It was no longer about whether or not I was going to stick to the rules of what people were going to tell me that I needed to do and how I
mm,
needed to do it. It was just the fact that this is where God built me strong. I'm sorry. Like, like God gave me a voice, he gave me strength, he gave me wisdom, he gave me a brain, he gave me great parents who taught me how to do all this stuff. And so I'm going to lean on that. I'm going to go, all right, well, let's get this shit done. Like that's that kind of thing. I had to the day after the fire, I didn't sleep at the hospital. I tried to get them to give me anything, like, "Just give me anything, I can't sleep."
mhm,
And my friend, she picked me up from the hospital, and I just went to work. Like, it was probably, definitely compartmentalizing the feelings, um,
mhm,
but
mhm.
it was just like, "What else am I gonna do? I can't
Yeah,
wallow." What the I
yeah,
let's get this done. We gotta
yeah,
figure it out. I have to be able to protect my children. So
yeah.
maybe I draw my strength from my kids. Like, I've got it. We're gonna figure this out, guys.
Right? Well, and I think it shows so much resilience. You could just say, "Okay, throw up your hands. All right, it's over. The dream is dead," or whatever, but the persistence to keep going,
Mhm.
I think that's incredible. I'm curious, what do you think your superpower is?
Um, I think my superpower is hmm, I don't know. I don't know that I don't know. I haven't been asked that before.
See, I think everybody is created with a purpose. I
Okay.
think that God gives us all purpose and something to do with our lives. And yeah, I love asking people what they think their superpower is because I feel like sometimes we don't know. Maybe it is resiliency, maybe it is that keep on goingness. you know?
Yeah.
Um, and I definitely see that in you because you're not someone who is just like, okay, that was hard. I'll just be done now. I'll go back to serving, or I'll go back to something that was easy or something that I know,
Yeah.
just that ability to keep going.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
do you wish someone had told you early on about entrepreneurship?
Um, that it's more than just doing your passion, because there's
Mm,
a lot of this business building that I don't like doing. Like, I'm not a
mm,
big salesperson. I would just rather people hire me to come sit and listen to them fight, and then I can talk to them. Like, that's
mhm.
all I wanna do.
Yeah,
And that is so far right now, not even like it's 1% of what I'm doing. Everything else
right.
is this business aspect. And thankfully, because I had spent so much time in ministry at a large, huge church with like 7,500 people in it,
Wow.
we would put on events and have these huge things that I got the experience of marketing. I got the experience of budgeting. I got the experience of
Mm,
understanding that we have to promote to get people to come to our events, our services, all that kind of stuff. Because if I hadn't done that, if I didn't know print and
mm.
graphics and web and video design, like I can do all of that kind of stuff. Canva is my best friend.
Yeah.
I love, like I can do all of that stuff, but I don't want to.
Mhm.
And thankfully, I have just the basic knowledge to be able to at
Mhm.
least start so that hopefully I can have my own team that will do all of this beautiful work for me. And I get to
Yeah.
do the one thing I want to do and just sit and listen to people and talk to people and let them vent and let them, and help them get stronger relationships.
I think that's incredible that you have that kind of insight to be able to say, okay, this is the hard, it's got to get done. Okay. And to know that that is going to be something that you outsource later. Because I think that's what it takes as an entrepreneur to say, what do I personally need to do? And what are the things that I can get off of my space as quickly as possible, move it on somebody else's desk so that I can do the thing I set out to do, you
Yeah.
know? And so many people don't have that insight until they're bogged down with the everyday and maybe they've lost their zest for what they started out to do in the first place. So I think that's great advice to do everything you can do, but look to get rid of it as soon as you can.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and to know it's only gonna be a season. Like,
Yeah.
I have to remind myself. And thankfully, I had some really good mentors, that kinda helped me kickstart my business, and
Mm.
they just kept reminding me. They're like, 3 to 5 years. And I was like, "Oh, okay,
Yes.
all right, 3 to 5 years." So I have to remember, 1, my year 1 of being in business kinda got a little interrupted,
Yeah.
16 weeks of that. So,
Yeah.
technically, if I were to
Uh-huh.
shift the calendar, I'm still in year 1. And then, what does year 2 look like? And does even 3 to 5 years work for me? Because I don't have a marketing degree. I don't have, you
Yeah.
know, any of that kind of stuff. And what I'm doing is so uniquely different. I have to spend more time explaining it. So does
Mhm.
my 3 to 5 window look like maybe 5 to 7? And then I also have a high schooler who is getting ready to graduate next year, and do I want to Yes. Do I want him to see me work hard? 100%. Do
Mhm.
I want it at the cost of my family? No. So maybe that's going to extend what it
Yes.
is that I'm
Yes.
doing. So it's like having that awareness and that understanding that I can't put my timeline on what everyone else is saying,
Mhm.
but navigating how I want to run the business and how I want to utilize the time that I do have. Yeah.
So wise, so wise. So I'm curious, how can we connect with you?
Oh,
What's the best way?
well, email usually. Like I just
Okay.
email or the social medias because I'm always checking that. And then I've got like a web app on my phone for text messages. I mean,
Okay.
however anyone wants to call me, you can
Well,
call me.
definitely. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes. I have loved our time together. If you could sum up your entrepreneur journey in 10 words or less, how would you do that? 20 words or less? Do you need more words?
Yeah. If I could sum it up, I would say it is the best and worst decision I've ever made.
I love that. Oh my goodness. Thanks so much for just hanging out with me, answering some questions, and letting my followers know more about your journey into being a relationship coach. And, as always, please like and subscribe for more amazing origin stories. And until next time, I'm Trey Bolin, and I'm always here to share a story with you. Bye, guys.